In this video, we're going to talk about some of the benefits and some of the drawbacks to a living trust. Hi, I'm estate planning attorney Mike Smith with Smith Barid LLC, and I'm one half of the estate planning guys. So let's talk a little bit about what some of the downsides to a living trust are, and then we'll talk about the huge benefits that I see in having a living trust estate plan. So a couple of downsides. The first one is that it costs more to set up a living trust. There's more work involved, and so the legal fees are going to be a bit higher to set up a living trust. It's going to be probably 2 to 3 times what it would cost to do a will to set up a living trust. But I'll talk to you in just a minute about why that cost really is not that much different when you consider the total cost of it, of the what I call the total cost of ownership. So the cost of setting it up as well as the cost of administering the estate on the back end. And you'll see that it roughly works out pretty similar. So if you're interested in learning more about how we help families protect their legacies from probate, predators, and government intrusions, I wrote a free book titled The Ultimate Gift that lays it all out. If you'd like to pick up your free copy of The Ultimate Gift, simply click the link below, give us your address and a credit card for shipping and handling fees, and we'll ship it out to you free of charge. Read The Ultimate Gift so you can learn how to protect your family. The second downside to setting up a living trust is that it takes some thought to determine how you want your estate to be managed if you become incapacitated or when you pass away. So if you set up a will, you're basically going to set out in that will a set of instructions for the executor as to how you want things to be distributed out of your estate. With a living trust, there's a little bit more to it. So you got to think about who you want to serve in what roles, and then how you want things to be handled if you become incapacitated or when you die. And so that requires a little bit more investment from you of time and thought. So that's potentially, we can think of that as a drawback to a living trust estate plan. So now let's talk about, I see 5 benefits to setting up a living trust. So let's talk about what those 5 benefits are. The first one is that we don't have to deal with what I call a living probate. So if you become incapacitated, so for example, if you suffer a stroke or you develop dementia and you do not have a living trust in place, potentially your family will have to file a court proceeding in probate court to establish a conservatorship in order to be able to have the ability to manage your financial affairs for you. With a living trust, we don't have to worry about that living probate. All the assets are in the big red bucket, as I call it, and if you get to a point where you're unable to manage things anymore, you simply hand that bucket off to a family member or a trusted friend or a professional, and they can manage the assets in that bucket for you for your benefit. So with a living trust, we completely avoid that living probate that will occur if you don't have a trust in place. The second huge benefit to a living trust is that we avoid probate when you die. So if you have a will or you have no estate plan at all, when you die, your family will go through a court process, a legal process called probate, where they will file the will in with the court. They'll ask the court to appoint an executor, and there are certain statutory requirements under state law as to notices that need to go out and time periods that have to be met, etc. If you have a living trust, all of your assets are in that trust bucket, and when you pass away, the person that you've selected, the trustee, the successor trustee, will take over the bucket. They'll read the instructions in the trust, and then they'll distribute the assets out of the trust pursuant to those instructions that you've left them, all without having to go through that court process of probate. Now, the third big benefit to a living trust is also related to probate. If you own property in multiple states, when you die, if you have a will or no plan at all, your family will face probate proceedings in each state where you own property. Now, that's not a full probate proceeding in each state. So what happens is the state that you resided in when you died is typically where a probate's going to be filed, the main probate case. And then in each of the other states where you own property, your family will have to file what's called an ancillary probate. So it's another probate proceeding that typically is going to involve an attorney in that state. And the rules on that vary widely by state. So sometimes it's a relatively simple process. In some states, it's almost like a full-blown probate. But with a living trust, we avoid that. So if you have a living trust and you own property in multiple states that are all put into that trust bucket, your trustee can simply take care of those assets that are in that trust bucket without having to file probate in any state, either where you resided when you died or any other state where you have property. The fourth big benefit to a living trust is that you can amend it at any time. So if you set up a living trust today and you say, well, I want my sister to take over as the trustee when I die, and then a few years down the road, you've changed your mind, you don't want your sister to serve in that role anymore, you can just change it. You can change it anytime you want to. You don't have to ask permission from anybody. You may need your lawyer to help you with that, but it's a relatively simple process to amend the trust. So that's a great thing about a living trust, is that you can amend it anytime you want to. The fifth big benefit to a living trust, and I referenced this earlier, is that it's quicker and less costly to administer a living trust when you pass away than it is to go through the probate process. And this is where the cost of things really evens out. Now, I said earlier that the cost of a living trust plan can be 2 to 3 times what you would pay for a will, and that's the upfront cost. But the beautiful thing is, on the back end, it costs about 2 to 3 times less to administer a living trust than it does to go through probate. So the total cost of ownership, as I think of it, is very similar between a will and a living trust. And when we meet with clients, we talk about specifically, what they can expect in terms of cost. That's an important piece to consider, when thinking about your estate planning and, what direction you want to go, is what's the total cost of ownership? Not just what's the upfront cost, but then what does it look like on the back end when I pass away, or if I become incapacitated, what will that cost, and can I avoid some of those costs by having a living trust? So, and the answer to that question is yes, a living trust is much cheaper to administer. It's also quicker and involves much less interaction with third parties like courts, etc. So those are 5 benefits of a living trust. We talked about a couple of the cons up front. If you need any help with your estate planning, please give us a call. Smith Barid, you can find us online. Thanks a lot. I hope you enjoyed that video. If you did, then take a moment right now to subscribe by clicking below and turn on the bell notification so you get notified every time we post up a new video. Right now we're posting 3 videos a week with lots of information about various estate planning topics, so you're going to want to make sure to stay on top of that. Click below to subscribe and click right over here to watch the next most relevant video about estate planning. Go watch it now.